Hello again, my name is Jason. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. First I want to say this is, again, a book that's outside my usual area. I very much am a fan of fantasy work, and so while this is fantasy, it is still not really my preferred genre. It's still kind of in reality. I much prefer my fantasy books to have dragons and all that other stuff, magic. So, Mysterious Benedict Society. It centers around four kids: Rainey Muldoon, Kate Weatherall, Sticky Washington. His name is George, but everybody calls him Sticky, and Constance. So Rainey is an orphan. He lives in an orphanage, but it was noticed that he has an aptitude for learning and puzzles, logic, that kind of thing. And the orphanage got him a private tutor. Don't ask me. They got him a private tutor. Anyway, she comes and she starts helping him, and one day he notices in the paper an advertisement for gifted children. And this tutor says, you should totally go try this. So he goes down there, and in the process, he becomes involved with the Mysterious Benedict Society. He's asked to take some tests, and he notices things like the test is a mirror. What that means is the question for answer 1 is the same as the question for the last, or is the same as the answer for the last question on the test. So as long as you can get half the test right, you can get the rest of it right. You just have to notice that there's a pattern. And Rainey noticed this pattern. Next, they are asked to cross a room and told not to step on any of the black squares. One of the things that Rainey does is he walks straight across the room, because he noticed that none of them are actually squares in the logical sense that a square is a shape, a rectangle where each side is the same length. He noticed that these were actually rectangles and not squares. So he just walks across the room. The others get by on various other merits. For instance, Sticky. The reason he's called Sticky is not because he sticks to things, but because things stick in his memory. He has a photographic memory. Anything he's ever read or learned is in his brain. So while Rainey didn't know necessarily some of the answers to the test, he figured out the pattern of the test and was able to pass the test. Sticky knew all the answers. He actually just knew all the answers. Kate, on the other hand, Kate is not the brainiac that the other two are. She is much more the physical type. And you can see her climbing up the tree in the picture there with the bucket that is attached to her belt. She carries a lot of things in that bucket that she uses to help her out in various ways. The reason that they were recruited was because Mr. Benedict, the one who gathers them together, he noticed that there was something going wrong. That everybody, adults and kids alike, were kind of panicking. They had a low-level dread that they just didn't understand what was going on. And he pinpointed it to a group that was on this island. And they were calling themselves a gifted society, and they were looking for gifted children. And Mr. Benedict wanted someone who could go in and infiltrate and see what was actually going on. He had noticed that there were signals coming from the television that were interfering with people's brains. And so he recruited these four children to go and infiltrate this society and get more information for him so that they could do something about these signals. Now, this is a kid's book. So while there is danger, you do get the sense that that the children will be okay. It's not one of those books where there is peril. The children are put in danger. There's at one point the house, Mr. Benedict's house, is broken into by 2 agents from this gifted society, and they are after the kids, and they actually stun Constance and try to kidnap her. So there is that that element of danger, but you don't get a sense that there's a danger to, say, life and it's the life and limb. It's well written to the point that you're not worried that it might be abuse of children kind of thing. It's a fine line. There is that sense that if you've read any of the Warhammer books, if this was taking place in the Warhammer universe, these kids would die. But here in this, it's a safe, fun adventure, and my kids loved this book. I read this to them. I picked it up because I thought it might be interesting. I read it to my kids. They loved it. Come to find out, what would happen was I would sit down and read it to my kids. While my wife, it was basically a bedtime ritual. I'd sit down and read it to the kids. My wife would be somewhere else reading a book of her own or watching something. Come to find out, she was actually listening to us the whole time. So my entire family really enjoyed this book. It's got adventure, it's got puzzles, it's got just a lot of good, well-developed characters. The situation is such that there, like I said before, there is peril, and so there is that urgency to figure out what the problem is and to rectify the situation. But you don't get the feeling of, say, dread for the children, that the ending is just going to be horrible and everybody's going to die, and it's going to be a whole fiasco. There are actually 2 more books. There might be 4, because this is the first in the Mysterious Benedict Society. There's 2 more that I know of, and I think there's a 4th book that's not necessarily tied to these 4 kids in the Mysterious Benedict Society, but it is written by the same author, and it does have Mr. Benedict in it. If I recall correctly, it's like the mysterious education of Mr. Benedict. So, anyway, very good place to start. Trenton Lee Stewart did a really good job with the writing in this book, and the pacing is very good. It was one of those situations where I would read a chapter at night to my kids, and we would want to keep going, but we had to put it down and pick it up the next night because obviously they needed their sleep. But when we were reading it, we were all engaged, and we all loved it. Like I said, my entire family loved this book and this series. So it's a great one if you want to read something as a family, if you want to read something on your own, or if you're looking for a new book that your kids might like. It's just a really good all-around book. So very much liked it, very much enjoyed it, and as always, like and subscribe. If you have questions or comments, put them down below in the comments section, and until the next time, enjoy what you're reading.